Thank you. Well, back in the 1920s and the 1930s, the Nazi ideologue Alfred Rosenberg concocted a brew of irrationalism and fascism, which he called the myth of the 20th century. And it was Nazi race science, genocide, and everything that goes with it. We are now in the presence of an effort by the United States government, by the Anglo-American finance elites, their allies, and the mass media that are really the most important aspect of the entire regime, to concoct something that can only be called the myth of the 21st century. It is the fantastic, absurd, contradictory, bankrupt, and discredited official account of 9/11. And this, I would submit, is the centerpiece of a new reign of terror. The essence of the Bush administration is fear, senseless, unreasoning fear, xenophobia, hatred of foreigners, pessimism, despair, and everything that goes with it. Now, naturally, it's not a coincidence that we find that Prescott Bush, the founder of this Klan, or one of the founders, turns out to have been implicated, first of all, in financing the Nazi seizure of power in 1933, secondly, implicated in the administration of Auschwitz and other Nazi extermination camps, and thirdly, of course, in manufacturing the tanks and guns and bullets that were killing the Allied soldiers in Europe. We are confronted today by the attempt to confine the human spirit in a new prison house of the human mind, and we must not permit this to happen. The neocon ideologues and their allies in the mass media are busily concocting what I can only call a block universe. It is human history and world history transformed into a nightmare vision of a 50 years war, or an 80 years war, or a 100 years war, or a 500 years war against this fleeting phantom that they call terrorism. Or actually what they really call it is terrorism. And of course, in that framework, any dissident, anybody who can think, probably read and write, can be labeled as a terrorist, and therefore as an enemy combatant and sent to the various concentration camps that are being prepared. It is an array of shackles and fetters on the human heart without precedent in recent history. It is the biggest lie of human history, unceasingly, unremittingly, mercilessly drummed into the minds of billions of people through the sense certainty Lockean images of the controlled corporate media. Well, they've also succeeded to some extent in splitting the intellectuals of the world. It used to be that there was something called the République des Lettres, that all intellectuals and people of goodwill and intellect and culture really belonged together, that there was a world of the mind that was above the nations and above the wars and petty quarrels. And they seem to have pretty much split the world along those ethnic divisions of Samuel Huntington's Clash of Civilizations. And they'd like the only dialogue to go on is among various people at the Council on Foreign Relations or the Royal Institute for International Affairs, talking about how to fight terrorism and how to wage new wars to exterminate third world countries and the like. Well, I think it is incumbent upon all persons of goodwill, of whatever your ideological direction, to rise up against this with, if you will, the pessimism of the intelligence, but above all with the optimism of the will, and that this is the way that we ought to proceed. Now, I beg the indulgence of the organizers if I just make an appeal, a plaidoyer here for what the project that's closest to my heart, the Independent International Truth Commission on 9/11. We have heard an amazing wealth of information, analysis, discovery, research. The spirit, the material of the human spirit has been dished up here as God's plenty for all of us. How do we bring it together? How do we bring it to the great gathering, the ingathering and harvesting of all of this work in a way that will maximize the impact on world public opinion? I submit humbly but emphatically that it is the International Independent Truth Commission. Now, Barry Zwicker and his friends have prepared the next step in the process that has been very nobly advanced here. That's going to be in Canada in June. What's going to come after that? July, August, September, October, November, and beyond, for years beyond. I think the Independent International Truth Commission can fill a very important role in that regard, and specifically that we can begin to reunite world intellectuals, we can begin to influence world public opinion, and we can also provide a kind of a venue, if you will, for regroupment of the various fragmented organizations that we see before us, the individuals who have been deprived of any appropriate forum by the bankruptcy of the political parties and the smashing up of other institutions, that these could somehow come together in a way reminiscent of the Bertrand Russell Commission of 1967, which did go on then for quite a number of years as a kind of a network that allowed people to stay in touch and provide a forum for meaningful action, beyond the notion that each one of us is an individual, or still worse, an independent entrepreneur, bringing forward the darkness of the ego and the greed, the struggle for existence, and all these Darwinian and Hobbesian notions that we don't want any part of, I hope. I am now in the process of trying to organize this Independent International Truth Commission with no money and no organization, and therefore I can only appeal to you. Join in this project. Do something to help this along. Send an email to Nelson Mandela, or if you think you can do more, please contact me. I am relatively isolated. I share with you the predicament that we all have. Your existential predicament in this society is if that you can think and you want to do something, you are isolated from the word go. Let us do something to overcome this, because we all know that this is the story of our daily lives. The call is available in English, German, French, Russian, Italian. It's going to Swedish, Dutch, Tagalog for the Philippines, an Arabic translation. Does anybody have the ability to translate the call into Chinese, into Hindi? Those are the big ones, the main language of the human family. So therefore, I would hope that we could go into this area of propaganda, but also into agitation to try to bring this together.
I have to hold you off there, because we're actually going to do that later.
Okay.
And actually, we're doing it upstairs right now, and we've been doing it for the last 3 days. And